All right. Hello. Welcome to our first rendition of our podcasts. What was the reason why we decided to do this again?
Well, we were thinking it'd be really nice to kind of start a podcast that's youth-based and talk about certain issues that, a lot of us can relate to, and then just in general to talk in free flow and share our thoughts. We think it's a really nice avenue, and it's a part of youth thing we'd love to start. So yeah, let's see how it goes. It's our first test, and we're starting off really simple and slow. And hopefully we get more people to join. We get some interesting people in Auroville, and we get a better system set up.
Yeah. I think the idea actually came way back when Krishna was still in the team, right?
Yeah, Krishna wanted to do it back then, and then we were really also up for it at that moment in time, but then it just never worked out and never manifested. So we thought, at the end of the day, we just got to start, and then slowly by slowly it'll pick up, and we don't have to have everything perfect initially, but it'll just work out as things go.
Yeah, nice. So we thought of like about a 30 minute as a first one, and we'll see how that goes. Should we start with a simple introduction of ourselves?
Yeah,
Alright?
yeah.
You wanna go first?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I'm Sanata. I've been in youth thing since 2022 and been really enjoying my time. It's really helped me grow and kind of learn a lot of things about myself and the world in general. And I think I'd really love to share those experiences through this podcast and really love to hear other people's experiences as well.
Nice. My name is Namu. I've joined YouthLink also in 2022, January, just like a couple days before him. In fact, I started working here and I was like, we need more people. Sanata, and he was working at Aquadine at that time, I think. And I was like, you want to work at YouthLink? He was like, yeah, sure, bro, I'll come. And apparently he was still working there. He was working half and half for a while and then came and joined us. Yeah.
Yeah, it was super interesting because for the first 3 weeks when I joined YouthLink, I was actually still working for the other company, and it was really fun because I thought I'd just hop on YouthLink to help out my friends and kind of see if I could set up something to make the process easier for them. And just I instantly came, and just the vibe and working with your childhood friends, everything was such a joy and so amazing that I already from day like 1 or 2 knew I was gonna quit the previous job, but just how I did it was the question, and I really wanted to do it in the right vibe and do it correctly, where everything was, everybody still liked me. Nobody was like, hey, how dare you leave us and all. So I did it slowly. So for the first 3 weeks, I was working both jobs, full time in Aquadine. I was working in the evenings, and then I would come to YouthLink. So it was difficult, but I really appreciate that I did that because now everything, they still like me. I think that's important.
In fact, Aquadine, I think, recently gave us a donation as well, no?
They
For
did,
us,
yeah.
For our activities.
That was so
Yeah.
sweet. They really did, yeah. And I think she talked to you, actually. You met her
Yeah.
somewhere, no? And
Yeah,
then she, yeah.
At Sang's house, yeah.
Yeah.
It was also funny because Sanata in the beginning was like, yeah, I'm coming for 3 months, guys. I'll quit after 3 months. And then that 3 months turned into a year. Now 2 years. It's like, when are you quitting, Sanata? I think 6 months more, 6 months more.
Yeah. And now you'd be the first to know. I don't think so anymore. I think it's gonna happen at the end of this year. Let's see. We have big plans, so many cool things to happen, and also, yeah, I'm never leaving. They'll have to get rid of me somehow. They can try. You're not gonna manage.
But I think that's one of the big questions that people have, no? Like, what is YouthLink? What does YouthLink do? Would you share a little bit of your perspective of what you think it is that we do?
Yeah, I really like that question because we have a help desk actually at YouthLink where people come. Mostly it's like people passing by, tourists or guests, and they're kind of curious about what's happening and what we do. And we have days where different members of the team are sitting in front, and then they take turns to introduce YouthLink and what they think YouthLink is. And what's nice is that everybody kind of introduces it in their own way. So every one of us has our own perception of how we introduce YouthLink, and the phrasing and maybe even to a certain extent some of the goals vary, but they all are beautiful and make sense. So it's really interesting to hear those. For me, I always felt that YouthLink was, well, a big part of it is the link and the youth, of course, but in general, it's just we've kind of, to a certain extent, divulged also into trying to connect the community, link the community through events and everything we do. And it was important. The mindset I think we have right now is not that we are trying to connect people through the events we do, but we're just trying to host great events. And as a result, we will end up connecting people. And I think that's where the spirit lies, where the end goal can only be achieved by the steps to that place. And when you always think about the end goal, then stuff ends up getting, a bit convoluted, and then we start to make decisions based on, oh, we want to end up here and we want to have this achievement. But at the end of the day, all we have to do is enjoy the journey, and then everything will kind of come together in its own unique, beautiful way. So I think what YouthLink is now is, to this extent, just kind of, we're a service that that does everything we feel is benevolent or good for the community through certain gaps that we've identified by growing up here, or people that we have volunteers who just come and see, hey, maybe I should start this process, or hey, maybe it'd be cool if you think did this or offered this. And then we see if we can offer it, and then just by way of offering it and continuing to do it, hopefully we benefit some people.
So it's actually quite an organic process
Yeah.
of kind of needs coming up and then us trying to meet those needs or the gaps.
Yeah.
Nice.
What do you see you think as actually?
I mean, for me personally, it's been quite similar to like a university of sorts. I've never been to university, so I don't have like a clear reference of what a university is. I have vague concepts, but not the actual embodied experience of a university. But I think here is it really ties in with integral learning in a way where well, basically, we're trying to operate with a non-hierarchical system, right? Where we all pick up projects and hold them and hold each other responsible, but also ourselves responsible. And a lot of it is learning through doing. So, for example, I've picked up a lot of skills in event management because that was something that I felt like I wanted to do. I wanted to curate events. And I realized, well, actually, I have absolutely no experience in doing events. Maybe I've done a barbecue here or there, but don't have any of the step-by-step planning or anything of those sorts. So it was a good experience for me to kind of learn on the job and also slowly understand what it is that I would require in order to do certain things, but also just kind of doing them and learning from my own mistakes and learning through the input of other people and whatnot. So quite a natural way of kind of growing in a way.
That's a really beautiful aspect about YouthLink actually that Namu just touched on, where we try our best to make it a non-hierarchical workplace. So at the end of the day, if everything was to flow as we envision it, you would have nobody to really answer to. You wouldn't be getting kind of orders, for lack of a better term, from somebody above you. And it comes with its benefits and its cons. The thing is, right now we're able to do this really homogeneously to a certain extent because we're a small team and we're all work very closely together. We're kind of fish in a barrel. Our office is small. We're all shoulder to shoulder, and it's a really interesting experience because the benefit is we're just really free to suggest new things, to try out new things, to learn new things, to fail, and that really helps. It varies. The help is provided, but for some members, it's been genuinely amazing to see their growth and to see how they've changed from since the day they joined us, and that really has been amazing to see from the sidelines. From the other aspect, we've gotten the feedback sometimes that it's a bit difficult for when new people join us, since there's such a lack of hierarchy. Nobody's really telling you what to do, and it's been a double-edged sword where it is unfortunate that some people like, oh shit, like, oh,
It's fine.
but like, oh, what do we do? Like, how do we, like, what do I do right now? I want to start something. I want to try this, but I'm not really sure who to talk to or what's available. And it's also, though, in the good side, really helped us. The people who stayed genuinely have an amazing sense of self-motivation and enthusiasm to start their own stuff, to take their own initiative into their own hands and really, try new things and fail and succeed. And that's been something that we've been really fortunate to slowly grow into a really beautiful team. Right now we have some new members, so we're really curious to see how it goes. But overall, like, it's a really interesting structure. And yeah, like, I mean, you can talk to this more, but like, what do you think about the fact that it is non-hierarchical? But at the end of the day, it also becomes kind of like a Lord of the Flies situation where we're all like, like some people know more about a certain subject. Some people are way more skilled at a certain thing. Some people are better at learning. And all these things kind of, we have our own inbuilt biases that are really hard to bypass. And at the end of the day, certain hierarchies do get formed, but they're all verbal. They're nothing on paper.
Well, if we're talking about hierarchies and organization models, to go a little bit onto the spiritual side, Mother talks about divine anarchy, right? Where you don't need rules and regulations anymore because the individual has wisdom and innate knowledge to do the right thing. Or the right thing is maybe not even the right word for it, but to act in behavior that does not create conflict and moves more towards harmony and towards unity. And the fact that there is no oppression from from another person, and instead it is mostly with organic ways of functioning. I think this way of operation where we don't have a hierarchy actually it forces us to be more aware of our surroundings and of ourselves. and how we govern ourselves. And if this experiment, in a way, I think it is an experiment, if this little bubble actually succeeds, then you will possibly have individuals that do not require external guidance anymore and is able to guide themselves from the internal. And if that goes, maybe I'm being a bit too naive, but if that can expand into the norm for the world, maybe we will be able to live in a society that does not require so many rules and so many arbitrary uh, forms of oppression and power. Uh, and eventually, we can all live together in harmony without having so much compromises that are kind of inbuilt in in the systemic level.
I really like that point actually because it makes sense because there is a lack of hierarchy in terms of people telling you what to do. It actually allows you to express yourself better. So you could, if you take advantage of the situation you're put in YouthLink, you could be like, hey, I would like us to try this, or I would like us to head in this direction, or I think we're heading in the wrong direction. The freedom there is given to express yourself. And if somebody were to take advantage of that and actually learn to express themselves publicly, learn to talk with the group, learn to make their thoughts and ideas heard, it would definitely be really beneficial for them in their future. And it really has been also shown to be. So, yeah, I think it's a really good thing we're trying. And right now, as we're heading, I think it's working really well because we're a small team and we all have faith and trust in each other.
How many are we again?
We're 11 now.
11.
Yeah, we're 11, and we will be 12. We have a new person joining us, Shiva. Seems like a really nice guy, and it's a big goal of ours. I think it's part of us to, at a certain point, have more of a deep connection within the bioregion. It's kind of a word that's overused now, we feel, but still, it's like, just with the surrounding area, because Auroville tends to be quite a really beautiful bubble, but a bubble nonetheless, where, for better or for worse, a lot of the kids who grew up here don't really know about Indian culture or don't speak any, Indian languages or don't really, embody that in any way, shape, or form. And they embody another aspect, which is super beautiful, which is, the freedom that they're given here and everything that's available to them. And it's something that's really beneficial. And I think it would be really beneficial if that was shared with the bioregion and then the bioregion was shared with us and some kind of connection was made. Because what do you think? Because even growing up, I mean, did you notice any kind of disconnect between Auroville and the bioregion?
I mean, I recognize the disconnect now. I'm not so sure about when I was growing up. My memories are also quite hazy. But, for example, there's a lot of innate wisdom that is built upon centuries of just living in a specific location, right? And these people from the bioregions have been living on this piece of land for thousands of years, which means they have a lot of knowledge about what kind of, for example, very simple example is what kind of things can be planted here. How does this ecosystem balance itself? And that aside, also they come with a culture that has adapted to this environment, and there's a few disconnects that I see. One is, of course, it's not of course, but there is glimpses of this colonialist mindset, or maybe colonialist is also quite a touchy word to use, but there is this idea that we come with the Western knowledge, we come with everything that we know, and we know what's the right thing to do, we know what's the right way of living, and I think we play negative effects on each other, on the bioregion and the bioregion to us, where we have brought in a lot of materialistic wealth and all the connotations that go with it, and that has, to a certain level, also contaminated the local cultures around. It's a little bit hard to say in verbalist. I'm not even sure of what I'm talking about. Could you shed some light on what you think about the bioregion and the relationship with Auroville?
Yeah, I think it's a really beautiful relationship with certain, from what I've identified, flaws that I think, would be beneficial to change. To a certain extent, we grew up here, Namu and I, and growing up in school, it was all of us together. We'd all sit at the same table. It doesn't matter where you're from or what you think. Everything was together, and we'd all do our own stuff, and we really didn't care about other aspects, where somebody comes from, what their wealth is or any of those certain stuff. And we still don't to a certain, we still don't actually, like, but it's just that right now, because of the situation in general and just how everything is going, there's a lot more dividing, and there's a sense of dividing. And how it's ended up is, for example, like one example would be that there's certain luxuries that somebody could have here if they come from, a little bit more of a, if they come from a little bit more of a wealth background, that they wouldn't be able to have where they come from. Um, just the fact of having an akka who comes and cleans your house is something that's a massive luxury that's available to us here, but there's no way, somebody, a normal person, will be able to afford that outside. And then I think that kind of sets a mentality where, you know, it's we're here, people are here, and then certain aspects of it from the bioregion are that people come to our house and then clean our house, or every every electrician here, every plumber, every cleaner, every mechanic, like all of these jobs that are great and would be great for other people to do as well, are usually taken by the people from the bioregion. And it's not and it's I think that's also what kind of to a certain extent pushing a disconnect where the rules are set, and yeah, I think maybe that's something that needs to be changed. Maybe it isn't, I don't know. We might have went a bit off topic. Maybe we can cut this actually. We'll cut this part right now. But
No, I think it's okay. We'll
yeah,
let
yeah.
it free flow.
Yeah, let it free flow. But because I'll go a bit more into it. Start. But, okay.
You can stop yourself.
Yeah. I think so.
I mean, but I do think that you brought up a really valid point about the hierarchy of jobs, right? Especially from a Western point of view, we have hierarchy just depending on the job itself. A mechanic, to become a mechanic, actually, it takes years of practice and it takes years of knowledge. But somehow in our mindset, it's still a job that's below, for example, say an accountant or whatever, just because of the amount of money you might earn. Or being a farmer, it takes years of being in contact with the soil to actually start understanding what can be grown and what should be grown and how it should be grown. But we still put it way beneath us because it is something that is not materialistically valued enough in modern day. We value, for example, our smartphones and being able to use smartphones a lot more, or computers or Excel or whatever it may be. And yeah, I mean, it's a trend that we see in Auroville as well. A lot of the Aurovillians think that these kind of hands-on work is below us in a way. Maybe not all, actually, definitely not all, but it is a pattern, especially I would say with younger people even more, where we want to be influencers or we want to be YouTubers, or we're doing a podcast, but it's a bit funny, but yeah.
I think it's a really interesting aspect because Auroville, growing up here, was such a joy and so much freedom was given to us that, to switch topics a bit, it's kind of interesting how it's hard to appreciate something when it's given to you in such a beautiful manner and given to you in such abundance. Growing up here, I had, and I'm sure Namu can attest, that we had so much freedom. And on the weekends we would go building tree houses. You could walk alone in the night. There were certain things that you were given here, certain luxuries. As growing up in Auroville, I'm sure we all know that we all have bikes a little bit too early. And it's awesome that we have these things, but we were given it so easily and so wonderfully that it was something that we don't even think about. It's this is actually a huge privilege, and it's really wonderful that we get to do this. And me personally, I don't know maybe when it happened for you, but for me it only happened when I left India, that I actually, or maybe went to other cities in India even, that I actually see, oh wow, it's so different, and the amount of freedom and luxuries we're offered here are massively beneficial.
Yeah.
So there are certain aspects where, a lot of people who grow up here feel that they get a bit trapped and they want to experience the outside world and try new things. The grass is greener on the other side. But there are certain parts about Auroville that we were given that has really helped us become, wonderful people, I feel. And whenever I meet an Aurovillian youth or an Aurovillian who's, grown up here, there's something about them that's so beautiful when you talk to them and their thoughts and stuff. And I think that's a really beautiful benefit that comes from somebody having the freedom to actually think certain things and express certain things and do certain things. And when we're used to that, we can really truly express who we are internally, whether that's good or bad.
Yeah, I agree with when I went out as well, there were a lot of things that I had taken completely for granted. Even just this level of nature, right? We have like a banyan tree right behind us. We have greenery all around. There's bird chirping. These things, when you go into like Seoul, in the middle of like Korea's capital, if you go into the city, you just don't have, and you don't realize that it's a luxury to be in this kind of space, because there's an innate sense of calmness that just comes with being in such a space, for example, that you just don't have when you're in a big concrete city. And we end up taking it so much for granted that we don't even realize that it's a luxury till we don't have it anymore. And then it's like, that was a freaking luxury. And it's same with education, actually. I think Auroville education, though it is sometimes scrutinized, uh, when compared to like for example, my cousins in Korea, they would start school at 8:30 in the morning, and then school would finish at around 5 o'clock. And then after having like a quick meal for like 30 minutes, they would go into cram school
Wow.
just to keep up with classes. And because of this hyper competitive society, that they only get back home at like 12 o'clock. And then once they get home at 12, they go to sleep and wake up in the morning and do the same thing over and over. And even the weekend is not truly a weekend, you know? It's still like schools here and there. There's like basically a lack of physical education as well. And then once you're out of that, which I did experience as well through like work, you get put into a rat race where you have to earn in order to pay for your basic needs, and you have to work ridiculous hours as well, or inhumane hours, let's say, because that's what's expected of you, because it's a very transactional thing, right? You work this much, you make this much, how do I say, income for the company, and you get paid this much in return. And it's kind of a race where you end up working for something that has absolutely no value for you. You're kind of like every day like, what am I doing here? But you're still expected to be there every day, because if you stop doing that, then there's a real question of survivability, like what am I supposed to do? Whereas here in Auroville, first of all, I feel like there's a much broader choice of what you can do. The maintenance, I think, is a restriction, but at the same time, it's a blessing, where because most of the places pay you the same amount, there's no reason for you to go for a specific job because of the wealth that it gives you. And in that sense, I feel like there's a freedom of choosing what work to do. And once I choose a certain work to do, it's really because of a calling, not because of survivability. And it's again a luxury that India at the moment does not cost a lot to live in. The vegetables and whatnot is still relatively cheap. Being raised in Auroville and whatnot, I have the luxury of being able to house sit at a friend's house. So housing is almost non-existent as a cost. Everything is very close by. So yeah, that's one of the luxuries that we don't talk about as well.
Yeah. Do you think there's certain there's also work happening behind us? I don't know if can you see it in the camera? No, no.
Not really,
Behind
no.
you, there's the JCB like clearing out the area. Hopefully it's not too loud. But do you think there's certain, for example, like doctors here, like people who work in Sante, they also get the Auroville maintenance, and it may vary, give or take a bit, but it's all around the same amount. Do you think that would stop people from, like if I grew up here and I say, hey, I want to become a doctor, I'm going to spend now lakhs and lakhs and lakhs to train myself, go through the school, go through all that crazy learning experience, and then I'm gonna come back now and then work for an Auroville maintenance after investing all this money and
Right.
time and energy into
Right.
it. Do you think that's something that people would be capable of doing at the moment, or the system would work that way? Or do you think it's because right now Auroville is such a beautiful place that doctors who have done that already outside and then come here and being like, wow, this is such a beautiful environment, I'd love to offer my services, would then do that?
I think that's a really complicated question, especially with doctors, because recently I heard saying that the pharmaceutical industry, or being a doctor, was never supposed to was throughout history not something that was monetized. And there's a very strong reason for being a doctor not to be monetized. Because if it's monetized, you have the incentive to keep people sick.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that they keep coming back. But I get the gist of the question, and it is definitely difficult to go out and have to learn in modern day takes a lot of money, right? A lot of resources just to go out and learn. However, having said that, there's I think a lot of incentive for people to come back here as well because of the environment. Um, in order for you to have the same luxury that you're having over here, right? It would cost you maybe 10 times more outside, which is the luxury of having someone to come clean your house, like you said before. The luxury of having a house that is not one third of your salary. Like if you're in Seoul, for example, the average that housing costs is half your salary, the average. So over here, compared to that, it's not half. It's maybe one fourth, one fifth of your salary. So comparatively, also having so much nature around you, while still being connected to a society, that's another huge luxury. Having free cultural events, having free workshops and learning opportunities. These are all luxuries where if you were to put it in monetary standards of, say, a big city like London or Paris or New York or whatever, it would cost exponentially more. So in that way, I think if you're just looking at the living standards, the living standards of Auroville is actually quite high compared to the money that we earn or the resources that are required to live here.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, and it's true actually. And to a certain extent, maybe a doctor might be too hard of a barrier because you have to have hands-on practice. But if you're interested in the sciences, or you're interested in mechanics or engineering or something, like even a new language or guitar, everything is actually available to learn online. You can actually take like everything that's offered through school currently in terms of the paper and physical stuff. You can literally find online. So if somebody were to have the motivation and initiative given to them by having such a large amount of freedom here in Auroville. And I've seen it a few times also where just people become the most amazing versions of themselves where they're full of skills, full of different things and different ways they can contribute because they know so many things that they've learned just by way of being interested and saying, hey, how does this work? How does that work? And then Googling it or asking somebody. One big part about, initially with YouthLink was that we wanted to set up a mentor-mentee system, which is still somewhat in the works, hopefully. But it was the idea was that just there's such an abundance of knowledge and like expertise available here in Auroville because so many amazing people have chosen to stay here, from like quantum physicists to like there's even a rocket scientist. Like all this stuff, there are people here who really can offer you amazing guidance and knowledge, and a lot of them are really willing to do that as well. The issue is, what we've identified growing up here at least is it's kind of hard to connect yourself with that. It's kind of hard to find. You have to have initiative and motivation to find, okay, is this person available? I'm going to ask the community, I'm going to do this. So if it was to be more readily available, to be like, hey, this is the list of all the stuff that are being offered, and this is the list of all the people that are willing to teach you something, and then this is the list of all the people that are willing to learn, it'd be a really beautiful system where there's just so much knowledge and so many amazing people. And if people were to take advantage of that, I think it would really be beneficial.
And to add on that thought as well, I think one of our possible roles is also to, of course, see what are the people that are interested and available, but also is to create the infrastructure around it. So, for example, say a person wants to learn rocket science from person A, a youth wants to learn rocket science from person B, an elder. Where is the space that they do that in? What can they by any chance get compensated for their time? If you're going to be a full-time student, maybe you need some basic things like food and a place to stay or a classroom. Is it possible for us to provide these kind of basic amenities in order to nurture the environment that can support this? And I think that is something that could be very interesting to go into with as you think in the future, in the near future.
Yeah. And what we've talked about prior about generosity scheme, which is something really wonderful we're trying to promote, where you can, accept a service or learn something from somebody and then return it in a way by generosity of what you're willing to give or, what you're able to give. And one thing that could be beautiful is if somebody learns from, a teacher and they get, a place to do it and maybe a little maintenance to learn as well. And then just now that they've learned that skill, at some point in their life, they would be willing to teach the skill to somebody else for free.
Right.
On the basis that the person they teach it to will then also at some point teach it to somebody else for free.
Right.
And that'll be a really beautiful, sustainable, generous model where knowledge would spread like wildfire, and all we'd have to do would be put the effort to teach the initial person.
And what's actually really interesting is that that is the system that humanity has worked with for thousands of years, right? You would have, for example, blacksmithing. One person who pushes the field of blacksmithing really far, then a lot of people would come to seek his teachings in blacksmithing. And they would become the students of this master blacksmith. And then in turn, afterwards, they will pass it on to the next generation and then the generation after. And that was kind of the way that things always had been progressing.
Yeah.
Is that nowadays with, well, it's a bit of a touchy subject, but I think modern education also plays a large role in destroying this kind of continuation of craftsmanship and knowledge, where things become so readily available online that people stop at just understanding a concept without really putting things into practice, for example. And that's one small example. But also that our education system is built to create kind of machine workers, right? People that are replaceable. And a master blacksmith is by definition not replaceable. However, that does not make sense in the industry, so we try to replace those kind of people with machinery, with people that do certain segments of it, so that you don't do the whole thing, but you do maybe just the hammering. Another person does the oven work or whatever, and we've kind of broken them down into components. So if we bring back a holistic system of learning and manage to make it as something that can be passed on, I think that could be very, very cool.
Yeah, actually, yeah, and that kind of falls into line of our 10-year goal, which at this point I think is our 8-year goal now, maybe even 5.
5 years.
Yeah, 5-year goal was the idea of hopefully at some point in time having a vocational training center. To achieve that, there's so many steps that need to happen, you know, with land and then money to build the place and everything. But if there was a landing platform where, you know, we could try to to create what we envisioned, it'd be a really interesting, like, you know, endeavor for
Yeah.
us to take. Yeah.
Yeah. I think some of the next, I mean, we're going to do a 1 week of planning for the next year and the future, right? I think next week.
Yeah.
But so it's things to be discussed about, but I'm just going to drop an idea here already. Is that maybe because we don't have the hardware for it yet, like the building or the infrastructure or the smelting places and whatnot, we can start with the software, which is to recognize what are the places that are already available, like workshops and materials and resources, and also the people, and start doing the software work already, where we start, for example, blacksmithing, since we've already been talking about it, we can see that there's a blacksmithing workshop available at, let's say, for example, some place in Auroville, to the west of Auroville, let's say. Then we can start by making the connections already so that all the things are already in place. The whole program, module, the teacher, the students, everything is ready. And that once we really start hitting hard barriers with the software, then we can start building the hardware in accordance to the software that is already created.
That's a really interesting point because it's as you know we were both saying in the past also, it's about, you know, when we think about the final end goal and we're really stuck on what the end goal should be, then the way there becomes a bit too rigid and then, you know, not really clear also to a certain extent. So if we were to just start moving forward and start trying our own stuff and start seeing what works, what doesn't, eventually we reach a place where maybe not entirely our vision is done, but it'd be done in its own unique, beautiful way, and maybe even better. We don't know. So yeah, it'd be definitely something worth trying out.
Right. Should we slowly close up?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think first thing to mention is that a lot of the things that were talked about is our personal opinions or thoughts that are coming to us now. If you have any disagreements or any other alternative perspectives that you'd like to put up, you can always comment below. I think this is going to go out on YouTube.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can always feel free to comment and also just come by our office and interact with us.
Yeah, we'd always love to also, you know, meet you guys. So if you just come by the office and then we could talk and hear your opinions. As Namu said, everything we talked about was our personal opinions. We are, you know, YouthLink is an entity and it's made up of little entities, which are us and what we do, and we have, and we really, like, you know, we've all had different experiences growing up here. We've all tried different things. We all have different mindsets. We're all unique. So it'd be really nice to hear other perspectives, and slowly by slowly, we hope we could have more people join us and try out new cool things. This is just kind of our first prototype / you know, first try. And yeah, we hope you guys have liked to listen. And we'll see you guys maybe weekly or monthly. Let's see. We'll figure that out. But yeah, we'll keep this up. We'll keep this up. I think
Yeah.
we've got to keep going to it, and then we'll eventually reach somewhere. That's not what we thought, but we like it as well.
And this was a lot of fun.
Yeah, actually, it was enjoyable. Yeah.
All right, cool. Tune in for the next one. Thank
Ciao.
you.